Hello again, and welcome to the second AWL webinar entitled Pitch and Praise. My name is Fiona Bodipalar, and I'll be moderating this session. What is the objective of this webinar? Unlike speaker-based webinars, this webinar will be a practical session focused on networking and enhancing your online presence, including your LinkedIn profile. Never before has this been more important, as we've been forced to rely on virtual marketing instead of the traditional personal touch. Why pitch and praise? In a nutshell, this session will show you how to pitch yourself by posing this scenario. You have 3 minutes in a lift with a potential client. You need to introduce and sell yourself. What do you say? Using techniques used for writing adverts, this session will take you through the steps of how to craft the pitch that showcases your unique skills, lets you talk about your strengths, and lets the prospective client know what's in it for them. The second part of the webinar is praise. This is the part that most of us have a real problem with, how to praise ourselves. Well, the simple answer is you don't. You get others to do it for you. If you're on LinkedIn or social media, or even in real-time conversations, how do you get others to endorse you or to talk up your skills? We will cover how to analyze and evaluate what are your most valuable skills right now. We'll provide you with a template for how to ask for endorsements and recommendations for the skill sets you most want to push now. How to enlist a buddy system so you can work with others to get the endorsements and recommendations you need in real time. So, without much ado, shall we start the pitch session? Let's see how the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Hanie Razaif-Bohlender.
Thank you, Fiona, and thank you all for having me this evening. My name is Hanie Razaif-Bohlender. I'm with Dragonfire Corporate Solutions from Bahrain. We're a management consulting firm where we help clients to solve problems, especially in talent management. Now, a quick brief about myself. My areas of specialty will be in career management, career transition, and personal branding. And I've been doing this not too long, for 20 odd years. And in my circle, I am called the career doctor. So that's me, Fiona.
Now, moving on to Sharmila Ravindran. How would you introduce yourself, Sharmila?
For 17 years now. I set up my own law firm in 2011, and I have an amazing team that I work with. And it's been a very exciting journey. We do a lot of commercial litigation. We do a lot of construction work, and then a little bit of corporate advisory work. Yeah, that's it.
And now for Sheena Gurbakhash. Can we hear from you, Sheena?
Thank you. I'm going to tell you how not to do it, okay? For years, I trained as a lawyer and I practiced for 9 years. And then I decided to join media, and I told myself I was a writer. So when I met people, I would say, I'm a writer. And I thought this was fairly obvious to them, until I met this woman one day and she said, do you do wedding cards? And I thought, what is she talking about? And she goes, so you see, my son's getting married and I need someone to write the wedding cards. And I thought, oh, you mean you handwrite the wedding? Yeah, no, I don't do that, you know. And I was so horrified. I was absolutely mortified by this, right? I wanted to run away because I know what my handwriting looks like, and I certainly wouldn't want it on anybody's wedding cards. And then I realized that people don't know what I mean when I say that I'm a writer. So I've been trying to find the words to describe myself ever since. And recently, a new word has come up in my lexicon, which is storyteller. And I quite like that idea of being a storyteller because it is, in a sense, what I do. I hear people's stories and then I help them to craft those stories, whether it's in advertising or whether it's in public relations or whether it's in a variety of things. So I think I'm going to change my designation on LinkedIn, which still has me down as a writer, and call myself a storyteller instead.
Thank you, Sheena. Well, what about me? I need to introduce myself now. Now, I would also call myself a storyteller, actually, Sheena. I'm a lawyer. I've been in practice for 30 years. How am I a storyteller? I tell stories for my clients. I listen to them. I care about what their problems are. And then I try to resolve those problems by telling their stories in court. So that basically is what I would say is my specialty, storytelling in a different mode. Now, having seen how each of the panelists introduce themselves, it's now time to see how others see us. So I'm going to pose this question to the panelists. Imagine that you are standing with a colleague and now have the opportunity to introduce that person to someone new. I'm going to start this time with Sheena.
Okay.
And what would you like to say about the introductions?
Well, I'm going to introduce Hanie. The first thing I want to say about Hanie is, if you Google her name, there are 6 pages that are about her alone, okay? Not confusing with a person with the same spelling, no. 6 pages on Hanie Razaif-Bohlender herself, which I think in itself is really quite astounding.
Okay.
One sentence, one word I would use to describe you, Hanie, it would be impactful. Because no matter what she does, no matter where she is, and she wears many hats, if you go and look at her LinkedIn profile, she makes an impact wherever she goes. But the most amazing thing about Hanie is not that she is, you know, one of the top 100 people you should be following on LinkedIn, but the fact that she has managed to crack the nut, this is the hardest nut for me on LinkedIn, is giving and getting recommendations. Because we're quite happy to write them, but Hanie has got a record of 45 recommendations given to her. I mean, this is like, wow, right? And she's given 35. So in the course of this, I really want to know, Hanie, how you did that.
Sure, I will share with all of you later on. And yeah. My God, you know me more than I do myself. Wow. I always have this fear of Googling my own name lest I see something strange, but yeah.
There's nothing bad there. It's all awesome. All of it's awesome.
Thank you, Sheena. Really, really do. Really, I do. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, now,
okay.
Well, Hanie, would you like to tell us something about Sham?
Okay, well, my first impression, now let's just backtrack. The caveat is this, depending on the scenario that we're both in, I suppose that will be in a cocktail scenario where we go out, you know, after work with coffee in hand and cookies. And she's kind of relaxed, wearing white like this. I like it, Sham. You have that elegance.
Thank you.
You know, and this is how I think I like to introduce my friend. Obviously, it's not going to be taking away the thunder from Sham herself, because I think she has her own a beautiful way of introducing herself. But here's the thing, I'm going to attempt to do this. I'm going to introduce Sham this way. This is my friend Sham. She's this fantastic young lawyer specializing in restructuring and construction disputes. And of course, I think why I am saying these two keywords is because I hardly hear a lot of lawyers specializing in these two areas. We used to get, you know, lawyers specializing in litigation, commercial, but construction dispute, I think that's kind of like, well, yeah. And looking at her so elegant, you know, and construction dispute, I think we have an anchor there. Yeah, I think that's how I'm going to introduce Sham. What do you think, Sham? Is that
I like it. I like it very much. I love construction work. Yeah, so it's a bit of an oxymoron. If you look at me and then you think that that's Sham with a hard hat on a construction site. But yeah, I love construction work. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's excellent.
Something different.
Now the tough one is for you, Sham. You get to introduce me.
Yes. So Fiona, I've had a love affair with Fiona for very long. I've been a fan girl for many years, long before I actually had a chance to know Fiona personally. So Fiona has been in legal practice for 30 years. She set up her own law firm in 2001. For perspective, I only started practice in 2004. So there you go. So when one speaks of commercial litigators, corporate litigators, Fiona's name will always surface. And I love it because I think if you look at normal conversations, we talk about commercial litigators, we tend to think of male litigators, stronger, more aggressive male litigators in court. But I think the amazing thing about Fiona is her name will always come up. And so it's not a gender thing. It's just that she's an amazing litigator. She has an amazing profile. And she has led some of the most complex corporate commercial litigation and arbitration matters. I've been watching from afar. But the interesting thing is she is so approachable. She quite effortlessly makes you feel at ease with yourself. She's so approachable. Her demeanor is so friendly, and then you go and check the kind of work that she does, and you're like, wow, this is a powerhouse. And at the same time, she's just so amazingly friendly and so down to earth. So that's Fiona.
Well, thank you, Sham. I like that word, powerhouse. I think I'll use that. That's a good word. Okay, so last but not least, I'd like to introduce Sheena. Now, Sheena did a very good job of introducing herself, but the things that she did not include in her brief description, I don't think it's very brief, but in her description of herself, a very interesting description of herself, were the very things that make her such an interesting person. If you were to look up Sheena Gurbakhash, you would see, number one, activist. Her activism as AWL president, her eloquent way of putting the point across, that is amazing. And one of the things, if you look up Sheena Gurbakhash, is her poetry. Her poetry, it includes a beautiful narration of the elephant in the room. Look up Elephant in the Room, people. It's worth listening to. And her publications, which have been highly acclaimed, and the highly successful interactive exhibition entitled My Story, Transforming the Nation. That exhibition was amazing. It's called, you have comments on it all over the internet. These are the things that make her so special. So that's my introduction to Sheena Gurbakhash.
Thank you very much, Fiona. It's very kind of you.
Now, moving on to the next part of the session, crafting the perfect script. And what is the value of having such a script? Now, Perhaps now we can start with Sheena. What do you think is needed in the perfect pitch?
Okay, well, I'm just going to say what we did just now. Okay, it sounds like we're awesome mutual admiration society, which we are, okay? But that's not the point of it. The point is when you hear people talking about you, especially supportive people, please don't go ask your worst enemy, ask people who like you, right? They will point out things to you about yourself that you don't know about yourself. And that helps you to then shape what you want to say and how you're going to craft that narrative so that when you meet that client, you're not standing there deer in headlamps going, actually, I don't know what I did. I don't know. And then you just want to die. Or like me, you end up running away because someone thinks you're a calligrapher, right? So it's very important that you have this script in your head. And it starts with, first of all, what are you best at and how you make a difference. That's your first line. So, hi, I'm so-and-so. I help people restructure their companies for profit. Now, these are things when a client hears the words restructure and profit and company, this client's now going to be thinking, hey, I want this person on my team. They seem to know what they're doing, right? Or if you're in IP, for example, you might say something like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I deal in intellectual property assets and I help my clients protect those assets around the world. So that automatically puts you can say, well, that's what every IP lawyer does, or that's what every corporate lawyer does. But every IP lawyer and every corporate lawyer is not standing in front of this person at this time. You are. So that first line has got to include the what's in it for you, the person you're talking to. And then go on to explain the reason why they should believe you. Oh, because I have done this, right? So you tell them what it is up front that you do that makes you special, and then you give them a reason for why they should believe what you're saying. And that's basically how you craft the pitch. Now, if you do lots of different things and you wear many hats, then have 4 different pitches in your head. Practice them at home in front of a mirror, practice them wherever you can, right? Practice them in the car, driving to wherever you're going to, so that when you meet the person, you have the right pitch in your head, because you only get one chance to make a great first impression, so make it.
That's invaluable. Now, what kind of script has worked for you, Hanie? Could you share with us some examples and perhaps, how do you fix an imperfect pitch?
Yeah, okay. A very interesting question, because there's all kind of scripts in my head each time I go out for some networking session. And sometimes all this so-called networking session consists of all kinds of people with different background, even doctors, lawyers, some CEOs, or, HR practitioners and all that. So what I do is I have this concept of a toolbox, it's just like your car toolbox, where you put all your kind of tools inside there, your spanner, your nuts and bolts whatsoever. So usually, and of course this is through experience, I've made sure that there's enough tools inside my toolbox whenever I go out. So again, depending on who am I standing in front with and what kind of conversation that I've been hearing, I will take out whatever tool, i.e. script, that I can share. Sometimes I don't have enough opportunity to do the whole spiel, I'm from Dragonfire, blah blah blah. I just don't. Sometimes someone just come to me and say, hey, do you have a call card? And then what? You don't have the opportunity to tell about yourself. Therefore, my call card, sorry, I have forgotten about it now. My call card says the career doctor. It creates a conversation and say, hey, a career doctor, what does that mean? What do you actually do? So that is my tool that I will take out from my toolbox. So again, depending on the scenario, sometimes I do the whole spiel, sometimes I just say my name and what I do. I help my clients in career management. Sometimes the call card just works and we end up having conversation next week for possible business, engagement. So I think it takes a little bit of experience to make sure you pull out the right tool or the right script. I hope that makes sense, Fiona.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that really flows from what Sheena just said in terms of having different scripts in your armory, as it were, and then using those different scripts or different tools, as you put it, for different purposes depending on the circumstances that you are in at that point in time. Yeah, that makes plenty of sense. Now, Sham, I just wanted to ask you. Now, you run, well, I wouldn't say small, medium size firm.
Small. I'm happy that it's small. So.
Okay. Well, you run your own firm, yeah. So how do you pitch yourself to clients?
Okay, so I don't have a standard pitch. I find it's very fluid. So I think every client has has different needs. So you may have two clients with similar legal issues, but they may want very different end results. So your pitch or your strategy or what you speak about may be very different for both these clients. So I think you've got to be, the key would be to be extremely comfortable with who you are and what you bring to the table. Like Sheena said, what can you offer the client? And I think it's very important to do your research on the person that you're trying to pitch to or you're meeting for business. So don't go in blindsided. Do your research. Everything is available on the internet these days. You will find some information that you can use to your benefit. So, I mean, for me personally, I go into a meeting fully aware that I may have the odds stacked against me. I am an Indian woman, and although I'm just 17 years in practice, and I get a lot of, there's a lot of I suppose a lot of preconceived notions about who I am and the kind of practice that I run. So they think, they look at me and say, can you do this? Are you aggressive enough? Do you think you can handle something so complex? And so I'm prepared for that kind of scenarios. It's quite normal, but it's really about asking the right questions. It's about letting the client speak, and catching keywords as they speak. Then you will understand what the issues are. And like Hanie said, it's really a lot of experience. Is continuously doing it and engaging with people. You have to keep doing it, and you get better with time. Yeah.
So when you go into a meeting, right, you need to suss the client out when you go into the meeting. How would you do that, Shah?
It's interesting because I think there's a lot of psychology to this. You have to be extremely aware of your surroundings. You have to be extremely aware of I speak a lot about energy. So it's the vibe, it's the feeling that you get when you enter a room. So it's whether the client, with those preconceived notions that they may have about you when you walk into a meeting, how do you break those barriers? It's very fluid. So you have to be able to think on your feet. You have to be able to engage with the client and convince the client that you're the right person for the job. And for me personally, what has helped is empathy. I know a lot of people don't like that word, but I think with the legal industry, I think it's very important that we realize that, legal issues stress people out. lay people out. They really don't know what is going on. You know, they're being sued left, right, and center, and they're having to come up with so much of money to pay lawyers, and then they look at us like these monsters, like, oh my God, you know, you keep sending me bills and I don't know what's going on. Exactly. But really, it's really what they really need is to feel assured that they're being taken care of. And that has worked for me over the years. And so, yeah, so not so much about sussing them out, but really trying to understand where they're coming from and what they're going through at that point.
Now, one of the things I'm always asked by my younger partners, my younger lawyers, the younger lawyers in the firm, is how do we pitch ourselves? Because clients often come to the firm wanting to see the senior partner. You know, it doesn't matter, they might have a small matter, they may have a matter that can be handled quite easily by the younger lawyers, but they come to the firm and say, you're too young. I want to see your seniors. So, Sheena, could you give them some advice on how do they pitch in that kind of scenario?
Okay, the thing to bear in mind is that everybody who's speaking on this panel was once young, right? So we didn't emerge this way. We were all young once, and we're all starting out once.
It's a long, hard path.
Yes, it was a long, hard path. The thing I think that you need to do is to, and I take Sham's point, the most important thing is that people want to be heard, right? They don't want you to inflict yourself on them. They want you to be able to feel that you are hearing their problem. Because sometimes, you know, in legal matters, it's not about the amount of money involved. Sometimes it's the principle of the thing. Sometimes the anger is because this thing has happened. You know, when someone buys a house, they're not buying a house, they're buying a home. And so I think these are things we forget, even in practice. We see this as it's just another conveyancing file, right? But it's not. It's this guy's whole life savings. It's, you know, a loan that he's going to, you know, he or she's going to pay for the next 35 years of their life. It is the bedrock of what they are building, and we need to respect that. So even if you're very young, I think part of building that confidence is don't be standoffish. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to find out about this person as a person, and then assure them that you will do your best for them. And of course, I think in firms particularly, the endorsement from a senior that is not, yeah, you know, it's very minor, so I'll let my junior handle it, but this person's really good. And I think they have exactly the right qualities to take this through for you. And I will be here to back this junior up. No matter what they do, I will be overseeing it. You need to give confidence to the client. And I think for firms, they need to realize that you need to give confidence to your juniors, because that's how you build a practice. You build a practice by building every party in it, not by promoting yourself and keeping everyone down.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's very interesting, because
well said, Sheena, well said.
Yeah, yeah. And that's something that we all need to bear in mind when we are introducing our juniors, because it is quite easy to say what you just said. You know, it's a simple matter and therefore she can handle it. Whereas really we're not endorsing the person for her capabilities. So yeah, thank you. That's very insightful. You know, on just to share with you.
Do it? Yeah, how did you do it, Fiona?
I mean, just to share with you a little bit. You know, when I started off, obviously I was in a very male-dominated firm. The clients, when they came to the firm, they wanted to see the man, not just the man, the senior man. But, you know, the senior men didn't really have time to sit down with them and listen to their stories, you know. So I basically put myself in position where I collated the documents. I stayed up all night working on the file. I sat down with them and took their stories down, and I was lucky because as much as I had male partners, senior partners, mind you, I was very junior at the time, they did give me the opportunity to sit with the client and deal with those clients. And you know, I'm very thankful for that. And sooner or later, the clients, when they came to the firm, asked for me, because I was the face that they knew, and I was the face that they who was prepared to sit down with them and listen to their story, and then put that down in paper. So at the end of the day, that was my pitch. My pitch was actually just doing the work and doing it well so that they would come back for me rather than anyone else in the firm. So
Yeah.
So basically that's how I sort of made my way in the firm. Now so time for a time check. I believe we are in fact ahead of time. So that's good.
Okay. That's good. Yes.
Right, now the participants have also shared questions, and thank you for that. When you registered with us, you shared questions that some of these questions will now be directed to the panelists. Now, one of the questions asked was, what are professional communications actually? What are professional communications? What makes a professional pitch impactful, unique, and true to self? Now, Hanie, would you like to answer this question?
I will attempt to answer this question. It sounded easy, but actually it's very tricky. You know, like a tricky question in an examination. Let me put it this way. We communicate to others through all means of channels. So it might be through having normal conversation, you know, over coffee, or on the phone, email, through your posts or articles that you've written elsewhere, you know, for example, on LinkedIn. And all of this is considered communication that you've put out about yourself. And because of these layers of images that people seeing on you, it puts you in a place where you're in a driving spot, yeah, to create your personal brand. So whatever that you put out there, regardless of the method, is all forming towards your personal brand. So personal brand is what people see in you, what you put out there. So coming back, Fiona, to your question, what is professional communication? Well, I think it is what it is. If it's professional communication, then there's some etiquette to professional communication, communicating professionally with others. For example, in email, nowadays a lot of managers who receive emails from the youngs, I would say, they write to you with no care in the world, with salutation. For example, they just, hey, attached, FYI. That's not professional communication through email. Or they will text you by saying, more info please, no salutation, nothing. I think as professionals ourselves, we need to be able to learn the skills of how to communicate professionally, and to understand what's the etiquette. what's the etiquette of having a webinar, sitting in webinar like this, or the etiquette of WhatsApping someone in the middle of the night? Is that appropriate? Having said that, I think some of the guidelines have shifted. For example, some parts of the world do not allow managers to email out or contacting their subordinates anything after 6 o'clock. It's illegal. Go figure. Here in Malaysia, you know, a lot of people don't care. They WhatsApp you at 3 o'clock in the morning and call you up at 9. Did you get my message? You know, what's that? I don't know about you guys, but I do get that kind of communication, and then never mind follow up with a phone call. They email me, referring to my message last night at 3 o'clock.
Which you didn't answer.
Which I didn't answer, obviously. I think is the current times has put us in such a way that is bordering between professionalism and being casual. I think at the end of the day, I would like to say this, because of this blurry line in dividing between these two, we need to ask ourselves, are we empathetic enough towards the person who is going to receive our message, and in what context? If we think that we're intruding, yes, we are. If we think that we don't want to accept messages in certain hours, then don't do it to others. I think that's the basis. So there you go.
All right. Now, thank you, Hanie. We have a question that has come in from the participants, and I think this is a good question to answer. I would like to just put it in here for us to answer at this stage. Do you think clients are loyal to lawyers when there are so many options out there? Now, loyalty, is it overrated? No, I don't think so. I've had clients who come back time and time again. Now, there are options out there, yes, and you will find that a lot of clients will come to you and say, this is the option that I have, and I still want you to handle the matter. But could you perhaps consider, you know, a lower fee or approaching? Could you consider this approach? Is it something that you want to do, you'd want to take? So basically, they do consider the options, but they still come back to you because, not so much because of loyalty, but because that loyalty has been earned. And that loyalty won't go away just because they have options. Those options will be discussed with you, but they will still be loyal to you. I don't know whether the others agree with me, but perhaps I'll sling this over to Sham.
I agree with you, Fiona. I think I've had clients that have come back time and again. I set up my firm 9 years ago, and I've had clients from day one who I was the one-man show. I didn't even have staff when I set up. You know, it was 500 square feet, and you know, there were people that gave me work then who still give me work now. So I think it is also a level of comfort that they feel with you, because I think legal issues are very private. And for me personally, what I do is I try to understand if it's a business that a couple of businesses that my clients have, it is how they run their business. I understand the psyche behind it. I understand why they do certain things a certain way, although it may not be the norm. And so they feel comfortable enough to come to me and say, I have this problem, I need you to solve it for me. I don't need to explain the background because you know how I do things. You know, I don't need to go through the rigmarole of explaining why certain things were done in a certain way 5 years ago, for example. So it's that level of comfort, and again, that loyalty comes from there.
Hanie, would you have anything to say about this, about loyalty?
Yes, just reflecting on Sham's thought about loyalty. I think loyalty also stems from trust, that you actually deliver what you said that you're going to deliver. And sometimes some of the things that client asks you to do, you just don't know because it's not in your competency, you know, something that you've never ventured with. But because there was a track record of you having the great values of integrity, for example, that you can be trusted, that you are taking care of your client's interests, they will come back to you. Sometimes it's not even in your area of expertise, but because of that trust, they trust that you will take care of their interests. I mean, Dragonfly has been around for 8 years. And just like you, Sham, you know, we had repeat clients over and over. And sometimes, you know, client will ask us to do something which is out of our, you know, our skill set. And we say, okay, yes, but you have to know that this is not our area of expertise, but we will assemble a team to work with you so that we can help you. I think it's also about trust, Fiona.
All right. Now, going back to the pitch, now some people say that personal branding is overrated. So this is a question that came in. What about those who know how to market themselves or have a personal brand, but it's all just talk, but no action? We've seen this many times, okay? So, Sheena, what do you have to say about that?
I think all those people who just talk and no action get caught out in the end. People get very confused by this thing called personal brand. And I think you need to take a step back from it, because somehow, you know, you want to say, but I'm not a bottle of shampoo. So what's this personal brand business, right? You might think to yourself, well, you know, I graduated, you know, in 2010, you know, 75 other people also graduated in 2010. I've done a run-of-the-mill practice. This is what I do. You know, everyone else I know is doing the same thing. We're all at the same point in our careers. What's his personal brand business, you know? I wear black and white and go to court. Everybody else wears black and white and go to court. How to personal brand? Apa benda ni? So the thing is, it's personal branding is not some big thing out there. It really is, first of all, your own values. What are your values, right? Are you hardworking? Will you go the extra mile for a client? Do you take the time to actually understand what's going on? Because, you know, when I was practicing, and actually since then as well, the client will tell you A, but when you actually sit down and look at it, it's not A at all. It's something completely different. And it takes time to actually get down to the body of what is it that they are trying to say. What is it that is fundamentally the problem here that needs to be solved? So when we look at ourselves as lawyers, from the outside, it looks, and you buy that yourself, I think, after a while, is that you go to court, you come back from court, you check documents, you sign documents, you vet documents, you send the documents from A to B. And we think, you know, we get out the law books, we read the cases, we find the precedents, we do that thing. And we think everybody does that thing. But if you break it down, there are specific skill sets involved. The ability to research, the ability to analyze, the ability to break a problem down into small components, the ability to, as Fiona does, tell a story incredibly well, right? The ability to find proof to back up what you're saying, the ability to know when to cut and run, when to settle, when to walk away, and when to break the news to your client, which you will have to do at some point, that, hey, you know what, my friend, this is just not working. This is not going to go the way you want it to go. This is bad news. And for that, you need trust. You must build trust. So my advice would be, don't send an email, pick up the phone and talk, right? Don't hide behind all this gadgetry that has come up. Sometimes things can be solved in a 10-minute phone conversation, which can't get solved, which will take 25 emails and irritate everybody. And above all, you are in a position of tremendous trust. Don't betray that trust. And know when to say sorry. That's the last thing I want to say. Know when to say sorry. So your personal brand is your values, what you want the client to value most about you, and how you are communicating this to them.
So, Sheena, following on from that, sorry, I'm still on you, I'm sorry, but what are the elements that are therefore necessary for that really good pitch? What are the elements that you think are necessary?
For a pitch, okay, so first of all, you've done that thing where you tell yourself, I know what my personal brand is, I know what I stand for, I know where my line in the sand is and the thing I will not do, right? Because we all need those boundaries. When you put that pitch together, you need to be able to say, this is the difference I make. Whether it's in a specific area of law, whether it is in the values you bring to it. And then the reason why you should believe me. Because I have done this, because I have represented this person, because I have handled this kind of matter before, because I have settled this kind of case before, right? You need to bring those reasons to believe. Otherwise, why should we believe you? Because, anyone can say anything, right?
Yeah.
Right? So give them the reason to believe. And then back it up, most importantly, with a call to action. So that's when you whip out your card and go, this is my card. Please call me. Or can I have your card? And send them an email tomorrow that says, hey, lovely to meet you yesterday. We were talking about this or whatever, right? If you're cultivating a client, cultivate them. Which means if you find something about their industry that's important, send them an article. Send them something that shows that you have value. Okay, so know your own value, pitch, give a reason to believe, and back it up with a call to action. Here's my card. Can we meet for coffee next week? Could I come in and look at your whatever it is? Something like that maintains the contact. Otherwise, you walk out of that room, they've forgotten who you are, you forgot who they are. It's over. It's done.
Well, thank you, Sheena. Now, Sham, I'd like you to answer this question. This is another question that was posed by the participants when they registered. Now, how do you appear, or rather, how do you not appear awkward on first meetings? If you're uncomfortable with self-promotion, how do you get over that? How do you sell yourself without crossing the bragging line, which I think a lot of people do? So how do you do that?
Okay, so I believe you don't need to self-promote or brag about yourself. I think first be friendly, be approachable, make eye contact, and a lot of people don't listen, they rather talk about themselves. So ask questions about the other person, and try and move the attention from yourself to the other person. I personally am an introvert myself, so I initially as a young lawyer struggled with this, going out and meeting people and walking up to a stranger at an event and saying, hi, I'm so and so, and I really struggled. So what I started doing was, and this is a secret I'm sharing with all of you, I told myself I'm playing a role. So I psych myself up before going in for an event, for example, or going in for a meeting, and I say, today I'm going to be playing the role of this person, and I'm going to go in. And and it worked, because then you see yourself from a different perspective. You are not Sham, you are someone else. You're acting, pretty much, you're role playing. And that worked a lot for me. It also worked in court as well. So because as litigators, I always ask myself, today, who am I going to be in court? Am I going to be the friendly opponent? Or am I going to be, the difficult opponent? So it's really about role playing and really what you want to put out there and project. So don't brag, don't self-promote. We hear so much of that these days. And, give it a fresh perspective. Be honest, be true. And, with all this noise that we have on social media, we've forgotten how to be real. So I think, when you are real, people really connect. And I think we should go back to basics in that sense.
Right. Well, I think that comment about social noise, I think, leads us to the next question, which I'd like to pose to Hanie. Given how much social noise there is out there, consistency to ensure visibility is much expounded. So what are your views on how much and what to invest in social presence? Or should we just focus on word of mouth when it comes to pitch? How much should a person, well, actually, how much should a lawyer, I guess our target audience is mainly lawyers, how much should we concentrate on or invest on social presence?
Thanks, Fiona. Again, I consider this as a tricky question. It sounded easy, but it's not. Because there's no real hard answer on how to answer this, especially where the part asks on how much is too much or how little is too little. But my specific answer to answer that portion is that if you have to start something. If you don't start, then you're gone. It's just that we're living in such world nowadays that if you pick up your phone and try to Google yourself and see whether you exist or not. Your name, does it appear somewhere in the Google pages? If your name does not appear anywhere in the Google pages, in the virtual world, you do not exist. So if you do not exist, then how would you be able to take whatever that you want to create for the better world outside there? People don't know you. So you need to create something first. The next question is, I've been asked this many times, how do I ensure that I have enough awareness created around my so-called brand? I wasn't really sure what sort of brand that I had when I first started in this journey. But I think if people keep on reading your news feed every few minutes, I think that's a little bit too much, because our role is not in broadcasting. Our role is just totally different. So I think the first question we should ask ourselves is, what is our role in all of this? Number one. Number two, how much time we must invest. I'm not saying that we must invest every single day. We need to work smart, not work too hard in creating the awareness. So you need to know certain tools. So my suggestion is, for those of us who's still a bit of a lost, let's start with once a week posting to on LinkedIn, for example, to talk about something that you're passionate about, something which is dear to you, something that makes sense to you. And why I'm suggesting this is because that's authentic you. You have to remain true, Sham, right? That's your word. You have to remain true. True equates to authenticity. If you talk about something that is so close to your heart, no one can dispute you, because it's yours. It's your reality. No one can dispute it. So let's start with that. Build that confidence. it doesn't happen just over time. We can't. Even when we eat something, it takes 8 hours to digest. So same thing, you know, we want to create something meaningful. We want to create that trust. And the last bit, when one of our participants asked, do we rely on word of mouth? This is my take. Not so much anymore, because we live in a world where our work doesn't really speak for itself anymore. We need to share with others what we're doing, and let others vouch for the work that we have done, validate the work that we have done. Personally, I've never really advertised any of our company's services. Is word of mouth, so to speak, but it's not just by word of mouth, but through our validation from our past clients. And by having that engagement, I think, and trust, is when they start telling others, hey, you know, for this specific thing that you want to do, you better call Hanie or Dragonfire, whichever. So you need to do a few things in order to be out there. So that's my take, Fiona.
Okay. Okay, so we need to have a quick look at the time. I think we're slightly over the time at the moment. We're 5 minutes over. It's not too bad. I think we still have time to just finish off the last question in the first session. Now, this is a question for junior lawyers, because I'm a junior lawyer. I mean, this is a scenario. I'm obviously not a junior lawyer, but now, if I'm a junior lawyer, my firm does not allow me to be visible, right? They might be afraid that I'll mess up. They might, you know, it might be that they don't want to allow lawyers to put out their own personal branding, or they're worried that, it's a very simple worry, but a worry that a lot of senior lawyers might have. They're worried that the junior lawyer may steal the client, may leave and take the client with them. So what can this junior lawyer do to market himself when he's faced with that kind of obstacle to his growth? Perhaps we can start with Sheena on this.
Okay. First of all, I think, you know, this is just general advice to anyone who has a law firm. I think you, or any kind of firm really, you need to have a definite social media policy. So you need to sit people down and say, especially in law, because we deal with a lot of information that's it's very confidential. So you don't want people going out and say, hey, I'm going to court on so and such with my client who's being sued for blah, 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 because the client may not want the whole world to know that they're being sued or they are suing someone for whatever, right? So there need to be boundaries set within. So the first thing, if you own a law firm, go out and actually say, these are the boundaries, and be very clear about what those boundaries are, right? Now, if you've got a senior manager or someone senior to you who just doesn't believe in all this social media rubbish, and there are a lot of people out there who are of that mindset because they don't understand it themselves, right? I don't know what all this is, you know, it's not real work. I don't know what you're talking about. We're not doing it, okay? You can still have your social media without resorting to the work that you're doing, as in the work that you do for your firm. But talk about interesting points of law that you've encountered. Talk about research that you do. Talk about that weirdo case that you found in some obscure law report, and there are many of them out there, you know, which is just amusing or funny. Demonstrate your knowledge without actually having to refer back to what you are doing, and build up your portfolio, right? There's another question here, which I think kind of ties into this, which has come up. Someone has asked, what do you do with people who are condescending about your lack of experience? The ones who say, young lady, I know more than you. I think Sham might be the person to actually take that question, and Fiona as well. But it's happened to all of us, okay? It's happened to all of us, and really the person who's doing it is not doing it to be mean to you. It's a tactic. It's a tactic to put you down and intimidate you. So you've got to stick that in your head and go, this is not about me. This is about this other person feeling very insecure that I'm standing in front of him and looking so competent and so capable, right? That, you know, you just got to either smile or develop a very witty comeback and come back with it. So I'm going to throw that to Sham and to you as well, Fiona. What do you do to all those fellas who say, well, young lady, or even call you young lady? Oh my God.
I think, Sheena, you said it perfectly. It has happened to me many times. Again, preconceived notions that, you know, you're young and you don't know what you're doing. What I do is, because when I walk into court, I'm playing a role. So for me, it has now become fun because I love being underestimated. I just love it because, you know, it tells me that, you know, I have a step up. Because you go in and say, you know, some unknown law firm in Mont Chiara, you know, and you really don't expect much from this law firm. And then, but we go prepared. We make sure we know what we're talking about, what we're doing. So I think it's become fun for me now when people underestimate me. But I think when you're young, there will be, you will struggle with it because, you know, you lack confidence, you lack the experience. But, you know, keep at it, don't give up. If something like that happens, I think Sheena said it perfectly. It's not about you. It's just about, it's a game, you know. So because if you lose your focus or you lose your confidence for that moment, the other person, your opponent, has a step up on you, or, you know, they have an advantage over you. So stay focused on the objective, which is getting your client a particular result. Don't get swayed or distracted by all this other noise around you.
Yes, and maintain the respect for yourself because you know what you can do. You know what you're capable of doing. You know, that nobody's going to take that away from you. You know, so ultimately, you can actually stand up to that person. You can say to him or her, I shouldn't gender base, but you can say to them, right, yes, I'm young, but I know what I'm doing. Right? I had one person, I mean, just a very quick funny story, but I had one person who said to me, young lady, I was called in 1957. If you win this case, I'm going to stop practice. And I said, well, you know, perhaps it's time for you to retire. So, you know, I was 1 year in practice, but, you know, it happens to all of us. And I'm sure it also happens to, whether it's men or women, for that matter. When it comes to young lawyers, you always get people speaking to you in that manner. But ultimately, I think if you respect yourself, you know your stuff, you can stand up to anyone. It doesn't matter. Seniority is just a number at the end of the day.
Fiona, if you don't mind, I just want to share a little story, very short one. So we stay on as far as time's concerned. But I had a matter when I was in my third year of practice, and my opponents were three very, very senior lawyers. And you know, I don't know. My boss sent me for the hearing, and they looked around. They looked around and said, "Are you going to be the one doing this hearing?" And I said, "Yes, I am." "Where's your boss?" "He's not coming." "So it's you and us, three of us." "Yes." So when we walked into chambers, they didn't bother to hold the door for me. And I had all these bundles of documents, and then I had to struggle and open the door and walk in, and I was late, and I apologized, sat down. We argued, we submitted. I won. Okay, so on the spot, the judge gave a decision. And as we were walking out, they held the door open for me. So
That's it. That's exactly it. You
Yes,
earn the
and they then referred to me as, oh, Miss Sharmila. But you know, initially they were like, "Who are you? We don't know who you are." And you know, are you going to be doing this hearing? You know, so yeah, it's really just knowing your file, knowing your case better than anyone else in the room.
Yep. Okay, well, we have to move on to the next segment. Otherwise, we will run out of time. What can we do now that we don't have conferences to go to? You know, we're living in this time where we can't go anywhere. We're stuck at home, having webinars at 10 o'clock at night. We don't have conferences to go to. We can't meet people for coffee and drinks. We can't put our best foot forward when meeting clients. We can't give the clients that personal touch. How do we use social media to deal with this the new norm, as they call it? By the way, the survey participants filled in, it shows that 68% of the audience here today, 68% of the audience here today are on LinkedIn already, right? Now, so let's have Hanie share her perspective. Since she's the career doctor, perhaps you can share your perspective on LinkedIn.
Okay. I find that you know, when I first registered on LinkedIn many years ago, that was 2008. It was simply because I heard that this is a great platform to look for job. But what I didn't realize is that it looked to me, it's kind of complicated to navigate LinkedIn. You know, there's the groups, and then there's articles, or you have to write something, and somebody says to me, Hanie, why don't you get on LinkedIn and write something meaningful for you? And I asked myself, I don't even know what I want. So that's where you know, the issues start. But you know, all throughout the years from 2008, I'm observing a trend where LinkedIn now has grown in multifold, and in comparison to other social media, you know, your Instagram, your Facebook. We used to have a blog, for instance. It used to be very popular. Everybody is on blog, writing about all kinds of stuff, you know, from cats to their practice and whatever. But on LinkedIn, we have 500 million people registered on LinkedIn, 500 million. And I find that if you want to be elsewhere, where, you know, 500 million is ready. You want to be there where everyone else is there. You know, for example, in Malaysia alone, we have about, I think, close to 6 million registered users on LinkedIn, and most likely 20 to 30% they are decision makers. Don't you want to be playing in the same sandbox where these people are? I know I want to. You know, I don't want to be playing somewhere else. In Instagram, for example. Okay, yeah, I do have Instagram, but it's not going to be meaningful enough for my kind of work. What can I share? You know, I can't be sharing faces of my clients. You know, same thing with lawyers. We're all in the space of providing service. We cannot show a physical thing to our prospective clients, but what we can share are success stories, or the not so success stories. Is fine. It shows that we're still human. And so coming back to the thought of being on LinkedIn, I think this is a space now. This is perfect space where we now can share our thoughts. You can link up your LinkedIn to your Twitter and demonstrate your thought leadership. If there's some skills that you want to share, you know, some success stories that you want to share, this is fantastic time. You can write articles, for example. Sheena writes articles. So that's great. I know a lot of people who write articles, but you must do it well so that you are different from others. You know, because the world is so noisy right now. You gotta make sure that you go beyond the noises and deliver something substantial. Remember, be authentic. And I always go back to being authentic when we do something, and it just, you know, it creates that trust and making sure people vouch for what you've done before. It's I think that's a half battle won. Perfect time now to be on social media.
Excellent. I think you've answered the other question that the participants had, which is what is the best platform? Obviously, LinkedIn. Now, moving on. Sham, could you tell us what the key points would be to be included in your LinkedIn profile, bearing in mind the Bar Council publicity rules, because that's something we need to consider and bear in mind, being lawyers, we need to comply with the publicity rules. So could you perhaps give some tips on how you would include that into your profile?
Thanks, Fiona. I think for me, I think there are 5 key points. Firstly, have a really good picture of yourself as your profile picture. Do not have a picture of yourself with your boyfriend, girlfriend, cat, pet. You know, it's a professional platform. So it would be very good if you have a picture of yourself in formal attire and, you know, looking professional. So I think that's the first thing, because, you know, people look at pictures first, and that's the first thing that attracts a person. The second thing is take some time, make an effort to describe yourself in your profile. You know, what's your background, what's your work background, where did you study? It doesn't have to go into a long rant, but at least try and sum up in a couple of paragraphs what kind of practice you run, what you're passionate about. Like, for example, in my LinkedIn profile, I talk about my work with Lean the Lean In Malaysia Women Empowerment Platform, because it gives me a different perspective. So people see a different side of me as well. I'm not just a lawyer. I've got other things I'm passionate about as well. So that's the second point. The third point would be take some time to share other people's posts, like, comment, and on other people's posts. Any of your connections who have, you know, a wonderful article that they have written, share it. If you think it will be beneficial to someone that you know, share it. You know, be generous with your space on social media. I think it's very important, like Hanie said, to write articles. It doesn't have to be a long, complicated, legalistic article. It could just be a specific point, you know, a question that your client asked you, and, you know, and you thought, and you probably just in maybe 500 words, you want to write a very quick answer to that question. And I think sometimes we complicate things so much with legal that we don't realize that it's really basic. The questions that your clients ask you are really basic, and, you know, answer those kind of questions on your LinkedIn. The final point I want to emphasize on is try and make connections with associations, bar associations in other countries, for example. Companies that, you know, you want to do work with, you know, if it's Coca-Cola, for example, or whatever it is, connect with them, find out what's happening in their companies, you know, connect with lawyers from other regions, read their articles, see what the trends are in different regions, in different countries, so you're abreast with the latest legal trends, not only in Malaysia, but outside of Malaysia as well. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So now moving on to Sheena, how would you structure a perfect LinkedIn profile? Is this something which you would be able to provide us with in terms of a sample gold standard profile?
Okay. I'm going to talk it through first. For me, I think I'm very stuck on something called purpose-driven communication, which is you need to ask yourself, I'm putting this profile up there. What is it for? What do I want to achieve? And this is vitally important when you do any kind of communication. Why are you doing it? Why are you spending the time, right? So when you put your header up, you put your name up, and then the first line there, you need to put your value proposition. What is it you are there for, right? So, you know, young lawyer looking to break into corporate restructuring, or young lawyer looking to enhance her practice and something, right? Whatever it is, put down the aspiration of where you want to go. Then the next point is you talk a little bit about yourself. This doesn't have to be very long. It could just basically give the gist of where you're at. Then you come to the bit where it tells you to put down where you've worked before, your work experience. Now, when you fill in that bit, please don't do stuff like, you know, 2001 to 2012, sekolah menengah, right? And then you know, 2013 to whatever, you know, and then whatever you did. Write down, it's very important to write down what you achieved in each place that you worked, right? One key point, something that you managed to achieve that you are proud of, something that is your benchmark, because that demonstrates to people reading your profile what you have done, and put numbers to it if you must, right? So, you know, if you handled 700 files in the case of 2.5 weeks, yeah, write that down. You know, or whatever you did, put a benchmark to it and say what it is. Then, right, you need to, then you come to the bit where you put down your skill sets. And this again, you need to go through LinkedIn, put in the keywords and pick the keywords that apply best to you, right? And they can be aspirational as well. So, and update, constantly go back, every 6 months, go back and look at it again. Is this still achieving your purpose? Is this still where you want to go, right? And then finally, you come to the recommendation and endorsement thing. That one I will leave to Hanie, because she's obviously the world expert at this. So she will tell you how she managed to get 45 endorsements. You know, I've got one. So it's that. So the endorsement is there, and then publish. Follow people you're interested in, right? You don't need to follow everybody on the planet, but if you're interested in a particular group of people, follow them. And remember that most of all, LinkedIn is about building communities. It's building a community that goes beyond your geographical location, right? If you're interested in shipping law, on LinkedIn, you have access to every other shipping lawyer on the planet, every other one who's there, right? And the best of them, if you wrote to them and say, I have a problem with this, or I have an interest in this, or they put a post up and you actually ask a question, they will respond. Even if they are the world authority on it, they usually will respond. So what other platform is there that's going to give you that kind of reach? But don't be stupid lah. Whatever it is, just don't be stupid. Don't go and spam people. Don't go and send 100 messages. Don't go and friend people for the sake of friending people. Don't try to sell them, things they don't want to buy. There are a lot of those people out there. Be careful. Be careful who you friend and who you unfriend. But it is a surefire, guaranteed way. If you say, I want to be friends with Bill Gates, and you put your mind to it, I promise you, with LinkedIn, you will get to him.
Okay, well, that gives us a nice intro into our next section, which is recommendations and endorsements. As Sheena said, the expert on this is Hanie. So how can we ask for recommendations and endorsements on platforms such as LinkedIn without coming across as demanding or too forward? Hanie, since you're the expert, can you respond to that, please?
Well, again, I consider this as tricky question because I think a lot of us are a little bit hesitant to ask for endorsement, right? Or recommendation, thinking that we're not good enough. Have we done enough? Would they say something nice? Would they say what we think we want them to say, for example, you know, and or worse still, they say, nope, I'm not going to do it for you because, you know, what you did for us sucked. I think there's a worst thing that could have happened. Touch wood, alhamdulillah, I've never had anyone saying no to me yet. How I got those endorsement and recommendation, I think it has been built over the years. I was never being that confident before in my own delivery years before when I started off my work, you know, within the space that we're doing career management, we're doing transition. It was a build up. It was a build up time. Yes, we screwed up sometimes in terms of the delivery, and we know that, you know, there's no turning back. However, after years of building up this beautiful work, I think with our clients, there's enough confidence to say, hey, you know what, we've delivered this for you, and it seems that we're liking each other because we've been doing this for a few years now. Can you help me to endorse the work that we're doing, or giving out recommendation to others? The beautiful part with LinkedIn is that we don't really have to think so much about the template. Is there. So you just click on say Sheena, for example. I think I would like to have some recommendation from Sheena about today's session. Or whatever, you know, feedback that I want her to give me. And there's a simple template on LinkedIn tab, and requesting her to provide me with that recommendation. Of course, you can edit it, you know, make it personalized and say, thank you so much. I would like to request for your recommendation based on A, B, C, D. So you got to be a little bit more specific in requesting for that recommendation. Otherwise, the problem with recommendation is that people don't know what to write. You know, people don't know what to write. Yeah, so they tend to ask you, what do you want me to write about you? You know, and you go like, I don't know. So you have to be purposeful when you start requesting for that recommendation. In what area exactly that you want to receive that recommendation? If anyone who come to my LinkedIn profile, you know, when they look through the recommendation that came in from my clients, those recommendations actually came in after we completed some session. And I have to take this, you know, strength to request for the recommendation in the areas that we worked with. So I gotta be confident enough to request for that. So authenticity is very is good, but you need to create that trust first. The minute your client have that trust, I think the recommendation will be there. It's easier if you have already created that trust. So work on that trust.
Now, Hanie, can I just, following up on that, Hanie, can I ask you two questions actually, which I think we can answer together. Have you actually gotten much work from being on LinkedIn? And secondly, does self-publicity, and really LinkedIn is all about self-publicity, does it dilute the worth of the work that is actually done?
Two questions. Okay, the first question is all about, I think it's about how much time do you actually invest on LinkedIn, and whether it is worth it or not. Because I think there's a lot of naysayers, you know, talking about platform like this. Just this is from our own personal observation, and we actually track our use of LinkedIn. We have a sales conversion of 70%. So yeah, and a lot of the focus is actually done on LinkedIn. We don't really advertise anywhere else except on on our other page, which is on Facebook page. We have corporate profiles, for example, and I do have a Facebook page on career conversations. That's the work that I do. So yeah, 70% sales conversion on LinkedIn. So what it means is that if the campaign that I put out on LinkedIn, there's 10. So for every 10 people that I talk to, I would gain traction and convert that into sales for 7 people. And that's an average. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
pretty good.
Can we have you come back and
Okay.
tell us how you do that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're running out of time. I just need, sorry, thank you so much, Hanie. That was really, really useful. And as Sheena said, you know, we may want to hear more about that another time. Sham, could you just tell us in terms of the client testimonials and what Hanie was talking about, how does that link into the publicity rules? Because it's very important for us to keep track of what we can and cannot do. Can you perhaps give us a little input on that?
Yes, Fiona. The publicity rules, albeit much debated at this point, it hasn't been amended to allow a lot of things. So right now, the publicity rules, if I'm not mistaken, allows 18 types of approved information. So lawyers can share their names to the public, contact details, lawyers' background, historical data, designations, qualifications, area of practice, but you are not allowed to share your client's name. So you have to protect your client's confidential information, name, company details. You shouldn't be praising yourself and bragging about yourself. You shouldn't be calling yourself the best law firm in town. Or you shouldn't claim that you're an expert in, you know, XYZ areas of law. You shouldn't be telling people how rich you are, so to speak, and how many cases you've won in the federal court, in the court of appeal. So there are these things that we need to be aware of when we post, because I think now we've gone into an era where the lines are very blurred. So there's so much of information on social media. When it comes to recommendations, my personal opinion is it's really somebody writing a recommendation about you. So it may not fall right smack into what cannot be done under the publicity rules, because publicity rules say that you are not supposed to brag about yourself. You're not supposed to say things about yourself. But I think the way recommendations have been done under LinkedIn, it's really about somebody saying something nice about their working relationship with you, for example. But yeah, just be extremely careful. I think there's been a lot of debate about the publicity rules and the fact that there needs to be amendments and changes there. That unfortunately has not happened yet. So we need to wait for that to happen. And in the meantime, be very aware of whether you are crossing the line and, you know, you're doing things that you're not supposed to do. I think I always believe that you must always have a bit of class when you do things. So do it in a classy way. You want to talk about yourself, you know, do it nicely. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time. We've only got 4 minutes left. So I would like to take those 4 minutes to let each of the panelists have a quick wrap up of the session. Can we start with Hanie, please?
Thanks, Fiona. I'm still trying to be apt at all this managing tool. Okay, so I wanted to leave with some thoughts about about sustainability. I think the world has changed, and the only change, and change is constant. And those who have survived before, it's not about strength, but those who have the ability to adapt and adjust. So those of us who feel that that we should stay doing the things that we've been doing for the past 30 years and won't change, I think they will lose out a lot. So, you know, no matter what stage that you are, keep on continuing learning something new, even by using Zoom. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Hanie. And over to you, Sham.
I just want to say that times are changing. You know, other professions are also moving with times, and I think the legal industry needs to jump on the bandwagon. We do have, there is a divide in opinion when it comes to whether we should be using so much social media because you know, whether we are maintaining the dignity of the profession by doing so much on social media. It's a trial and error kind of situation. If you don't do it, you get left behind. Everything is moving in that direction, and we need to be open to change. You know, like every other profession, everyone is trying it out. You know, just understand and know what, like Sheena mentioned very much earlier, she said you need to know what your boundaries are, and you know what you know in your core you can do and you can't do, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with doing. And I think, you know, start there, but start something, you know, don't get left behind.
Yeah. And now over to you, Sheena.
I think what Hanie said in the beginning, you know, if you're not there, you're invisible. If no one can give you work if they cannot find you. That's the simple fact of it, right? I also do not know a single employer who, if they're mildly interested in you, does not go and look at your Facebook, your LinkedIn, and whatever else you've got online. So my advice is curate, curate, curate. Okay? This is the thing about, you know, we sort of say, oh, we put something on social media and then it's going to be there forever. No, it's not going to be there forever. You control what you're putting out there. So control it judiciously. Be very certain about what you want to achieve, right? I would go so far as to say, split your profiles. So yes, have a Facebook page which is dedicated to your mother and your cats and your you know, collection of teapots or whatever, and you know, maybe put that under a different name, you know, your home name or something, so that an employer doesn't find it. And then you have your LinkedIn, which is 100% professional, right? You need to separate these things. You need to curate them. You need to say, what is the ultimate impression that I'm giving out there? Because I can tell you there's many a time I've gone out, I've come back with someone's name card, and the first thing I do when I get home is I check them out on LinkedIn. In fact, sometimes I don't even wait to get home, I'm doing it in the car, right? And that is the trend nowadays. That is what people are doing. So are you going to say, no, I'm going to be the frog under the proverbial coconut shell and I'm not going to play this game, right? Then unfortunately, you know, you will be the frog under the coconut shell. So sorry for you. Because there are very few of us who actually have the kind of networks which allow us to ignore this. There are people out there who are so rich, so famous, so social that, you know, they've got 2,000 names on their phone, in their phones, and they can call everybody and they can get what they want. But most of us are not that. So go for it.
Right. Thank you, Sheena. And with that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our panelists, Hanie Razaif-Bohlender, Sharmila Ravindran, and Sheena Gurbakhash, for taking the time to join us this evening. Now, so with that, I just want to say, now's the time to act. Don't sit on your laurels. Listen to all these wonderful women leaders who have given us great insights today. Don't be the Nokia of the legal world. Go and put these into practice. Right. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions, joined us for this session. We hope that all of you found this session useful. Good night, stay safe, and to those celebrating, Selamat Hari Raya.